Introducing the award-winning Pod 4 Ultra from 8 Sleep, a high-tech mattress cover you can easily add to your existing mattress. The pod changes the temperature of your mattress. You can set it anywhere from 55 to 110 degrees, letting you and your partner set different temperatures on each side. I keep mine at 60 so that I don't get hot. It can also adjust the position of your mattress to reduce snoring, and you get 30 days to try and decide if you love it. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman to get $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra. The link is in the description. Welcome, everybody. We're really getting to the end of the race here, and one of the situations we have to prepare for, account for, have a plan for, and by we, I mean the Harris campaign needs to figure it out, Democrats need to figure it out, is the situation that we are calling premature election. Donald Trump will almost certainly claim that he won before it's over. I was recently on a couple of different shows, and when I'm asked about predictions here, the election's a coin flip. And I know that there are people in my audience who feel strongly that Kamala Harris will win, people who feel strongly that Donald Trump will win. But the truth is, it's really a coin flip at this point. The states that will determine the outcome are within a point, sometimes half a point, sometimes a point and a half. But with almost absolute certainty, we can predict that Donald Trump will claim either or both that he won, that it was rigged, or both. And the question is, what is the plan in that scenario? Now, Kamala Harris was recently interviewed by NBC News. We played some of that interview, and I want to focus in on a part of it that was recently released in which this exact scenario is brought up to Kamala Harris. Here is what she had to say when asked.
In 2020, a race he lost, Mr. Trump declared victory before all the votes were counted.
Frankly, we did win this election.
What is your plan if he does that again in 2 weeks?
Well, let me say this. We've got 2 weeks to go. And I'm very much grounded in the present in terms of the task at hand. And we will deal with election night and the days after as they come. And we have the resources and the expertise and the focus on that as well.
So you have teams ready to go? Is that what you're saying? Are you thinking about that as a possibility?
Of course. This is a person, Donald Trump, who tried to undo a free and fair election, who still denies the will of the people, who incited a violent mob to attack the United States Capitol, and 140 law enforcement officers were attacked. Some were killed. This is a serious matter.
We asked about the issue of abortion access if
So, of course, they're thinking about it. Of course, there is some plan in place. Now, it's more than Trump still hasn't accepted the results of the 2020 election. Trump still doesn't accept that he really lost the popular vote in 2016. Of course, he believes that he won in 2020. And he has already said that the only way that he can lose 2024 is if there's fraud, which is the same thing that he said back in 2020. He's also made other predictions like the stock market will crash to 1929 levels. None of these predictions seem to come true. But of course, he is going to claim that it is rigged. Now, I know that the way to get clicks, the way that you do good content is you have to take some kind of extreme and definitive position. Now, I'm not going to do that here because I genuinely don't know what to expect if and when Donald Trump starts with these tactics. We already looked last week at if you wanted to steal an election, what would be better ways to do it than through, falsely voting for dead people's names or getting undocumented immigrants to show up and say, I'm John Smith and I'm here to vote. Those aren't good ways to steal an election. The ways you would do it are actually the way that Republicans are operating, which is you try to suppress the vote, you try to put loyalists in positions of being able to certify or not certify precincts or counties or states. And Trump is trying those things. Now, let me give you the two scenarios. And I'm telling you, I'm not sure which of these is most likely. The one scenario is, having seen what they tried in 2020, the systems will be more ready, and it's way less likely that Trump has a real shot at generating the sort of chaos he generated in 2020, and it's going to go nowhere. If Trump loses, he's going to lose. He'll say it was rigged, but we're not going to see the bogus hearings we saw last time with Rudy Giuliani going around spreading COVID and farting in court. We're not going to see any of that stuff. On the other hand, the counterpoint is, with the knowledge of where they didn't succeed in 2020, the MAGA people are going to be better prepared to actually have a better shot at stealing an election this time around. And it's more of a concern rather than less of a concern. I'm telling you, I have been thinking about this for a while, talking to friends. Some of my friends are on the former scenario I just gave you. Some of my friends are on the latter. People engaged in politics and not engaged. Some say there's no chance it works this time. Others say it's more likely it works this time because they have the knowledge of hindsight in terms of where it failed in 2020. I want to hear from you. What do you expect? Question one, do you agree with me that Trump is going to claim he won regardless? And question two, do you think that they are more likely to succeed this time around or less likely to succeed? I want to hear from you. Now, having told you all of that, we now have to get to what we have just uncovered about the plan that is there to contest the election. Rolling Stone has a blockbuster piece out by Nikki McCann Ramirez explaining Trump's existing plan to contest the election. We started the show with, of course, Trump's going to claim it's rigged. Of course, Trump's going to claim that he won, and a clip of Kamala Harris saying, of course, we're preparing for that and we're going to be ready for it. Fine. Rolling Stone reports Trump is already talking to lawyers about contesting the election results. As the election approaches, the former president is preparing an all-sides offensive to challenge election results. The article explains Trump has reestablished contact with a lawyer who was involved trying to challenge the 2020 election. That lawyer is encouraging Trump to start laying the groundwork now. The New York Times has reported on this, and Trump has been speaking with Kurt Olson. He's a MAGA lawyer who was involved in a bunch of the state challenges back in 2020. Sources say Olson has been encouraging Trump start demanding voting machine data be preserved in the critical swing states. And Trump is reportedly entertaining Olson's advice, while others are worried that Trump is taking advice from this guy who's facing ethics complaints himself, and that this could all end up muddling the plans. In other words, there are people in Trump's campaign. This is so funny. It's not that the people around Trump are worried that Trump plans to contest the election. There's people around Trump who are worried that Trump is working with Olson on those plans because Olson is suffering ethics complaints that are against him. The article goes on to say, as previously reported by Rolling Stone, a major portion of their strategy hinges on leveling claims of fraud as early as possible on election night, as swing states count mail-in and absentee ballots that they are not allowed to touch before Election Day. As we know, Trump claimed that mail-in ballots were fraud. They said it was all fraud, and that's why he lost. So there are things we are not certain about, and there are things we can be very certain about. Based on all of the reporting and Donald Trump's previous actions and everything that he and others are saying now, that the only way he can lose is if it is rigged against them. Trump will say that he won, and Trump will attempt some strategy to try to take an election that he actually lost if he loses. The questions that are outstanding are, will it be an improved version of the strategy from 2020, or will he bring out novel and new ways of attempting to challenge, overturn, and subsequently steal an election? Now, I was on the Piers Morgan show yesterday, and this guy who goes by the name Officer Tatum, Brian Tatum, he argued that the only way Kamala Harris will win is if they figure out a way to rig it, that otherwise Trump would win by 20. I want to go on record right now. And, you know, it's like, this isn't really even controversial, but I know that it needs to be said. I'm telling you now, we are 2 weeks out. If Kamala Harris loses the election, 0% of my focus will be that it was rigged or stolen. My focus will be on why she lost, why the campaign failed to do what it needed to do, what this says about the electorate, what this projects about the next 2 and 4 years. That's going to be my reaction. I don't even have an interest. If you said to me, well, David, what if you could steal it for Kamala if she lost? I don't want to do that. That's not a way to run a country. That's not a way to win. In the same way that there are some Republicans saying, I'm putting country over party, Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney, Mitt Romney, Adam Kinzinger, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whoever, to different degrees, saying, I'm not voting Trump or I am voting Harris or whatever. To the extent that they are saying we need the rightful winner and we need a president who will preserve the guardrails of democracy, I only want Kamala Harris to be sworn in as president of the United States if she genuinely wins. If it's Trump, then we've got a hell of a situation facing us. But that's the situation. You don't try to steal it. So there is not a two sides thing to this where either side would try to rig it or steal it or put their No. Kamala Harris needs to win this thing. And if she doesn't, we can say, well, how much of it was campaign strategy? How much of it was Kamala Harris being the right or wrong candidate? And how much of it is about a population that, unfortunately, has had weaponized disinformation targeted at them, has fallen for it, doesn't know what the hell is going on, right? All of these will be factors. But there's no one on the left planning to steal it if Harris loses. If she loses, she doesn't get to be president, and that's it. Kamala Harris did a town hall yesterday on CNN, and she dropped the hammer on Trump and straight up says, yes, Donald Trump is a fascist. Let's take a listen.
Donald Trump at the lead.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted. Again, look at their careers. These are not people, with the exception, I think, of only Mike Pence. These were not politicians. These are career people who have served in the highest roles in national security, who have served as generals in our military, who are highly respected. Talking about the person who would be commander-in-chief, not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military.
So I think that there's a reasonable discussion to be had here about Trump's a fascist versus he's a fascist wannabe. There is no doubt whatsoever that Donald Trump's instincts are towards fascism. The authoritarianism, the ultranationalism, the cult of personality around him, his disdain for liberal democracy when it's inconvenient, the demand of complete and total loyalty, which means never questioning anything he says or does by those around him, the willingness to use intimidation and even to incite his followers to violence against those who have disagreements. So there is no doubt that these are Trump's instincts and Trump's desires. Whether it is wannabe fascism comes down to what he's been able to do and what he would be able to do if he had a shot. Fortunately, Trump, when he was president, was not able to completely consolidate power, where you would see, for example, the military saying, yeah, we're going to keep you in the Oval Office even though you lost. We didn't see that, fortunately. The other aspect to this is that Trump knows so little about everything. He has no deep knowledge about anything that he has a conviction to do. There's kind of a lack of a coherent ideology. But if Trump were allowed to rule as he wants to rule, certainly fascist would be an appropriate and accurate term. Now, during this town hall, Vice President Harris was also asked about some of Trump's other dangerous authoritarian ideas, and she addressed Trump's enemies list and contrasted what she will have instead.
Understand that, again, in 13 days, the American people will decide who is the next president of the United States. In 13 days, you will decide who is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th. And on one hand, you have in Donald Trump someone who has increasingly proved himself to be unstable, and who, as we have established and the people close to him have established, he is unfit to serve. Somebody who, on January 20th, you can be sure, will spend full time, like we know, and we've seen the image mentally of him sitting in the dining room off of the Oval Office, watching for hours as people violently attack the Capitol. You can be sure, because he has said he would weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, that you can look at a Donald Trump in the White House after January 20th, sitting in that Oval Office, plotting his revenge. He has talked about the enemies within. We haven't even raised that subject, Anderson. The enemies within. He's talking about the American people. He's talking about journalists, judges, nonpartisan election officials. He has talked about, as John Kelly has talked about, Can he send the military after peaceful protesters? And he's going to sit there unstable, unhinged, plotting his revenge, plotting his retribution, creating an enemies list. I'm going to tell you, my list will be a list of how I address and continue to address the issues that you all are raising this afternoon and evening. It will be a to-do list about how we can impact the American people and lift up.
A to-do list rather than an enemies list. I don't know if it's going to be enough to win this thing, but in the last 48 to 72 hours between this town hall, the interview with NBC, where Kamala Harris was sort of goaded into playing identity politics and said, people can tell I'm a woman, people can tell my race by looking at me. I don't need to talk about that. I talk about policy. Some excellent appearances for the VP over the last 48 to 72 hours. Trump's got Rogan coming up. Rumors that Kamala Harris will also be on Rogan. We'll see how those go, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that tomorrow. But at least as far as the last few days, some very strong appearances by Kamala Harris. Will it be enough? Well, we'll find out in about 11 days. Let's take a quick break. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/The David Pakman Show. And the program will continue if I have anything to say about it. Let's talk about a game changer in sleep technology, our sponsor 8 Sleep and their revolutionary Pod 4 Ultra. The Pod is a high-tech mattress cover, and you can easily add it to your existing mattress. You can cool or heat your mattress based on your preferences and even elevate your head if you snore. I run hot. I hate getting hot when I sleep. That's why I set my 8 Sleep Pod to keep my mattress at a cool 60 degrees at night. You can set it anywhere from 55 to 110 degrees. You can set each side of the bed independently to a different temperature depending on your preferences versus your partner's, or you can set your pod to detect your body's sleep cycles and automatically adjust temperature for optimal sleep. The pod can also detect when you're snoring and automatically adjust the position of the bed to reduce or even stop the snoring. This can be a huge factor in how rested you will feel the next day, and your sleeping partner will thank you bigly. You get 30 days to try it at home. Return it if you don't like it, but I know you'll love it as much as I do. Go to 8sleep.com/Pakman. Use the code Pakman to get $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra. The link is in the description. Once we get through this Rubicon of November 5th, we're going to have our work cut out for us. No matter what happens, we're going to have our work cut out for us. Either we are going to be on aggressive, world-altering defense, where we will need to deny Donald Trump's instincts to do everything wrong, or we will be in a position to get as much as possible from a Harris administration in the vein of the sorts of policies that we believe in. Either way, we need strong independent media. If you want to learn about what's at stake and how to do it right, please pre-order my forthcoming book, The Echo Machine, which I often hold up upside down like this, but let me flip it. The Echo Machine, I talk about how we got to where we are and the paths forward, various paths, plural, forward. You can get the book at davidpakman.com/echo or order it at any local bookstore, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, etc. I start recording the audiobook today, in fact. That's going to be quite an experience. And in addition to that, support whatever progressive independent media you think is doing good work. If it's this show, I would be flattered and honored to have your support. You can sign up at joinpakman.com. If it's some other progressive show, great. The right knows the importance of supporting progressive media. The right knows the importance of supporting their right-wing independent media. We also need to do the same on our side. So consider a membership at joinpakman.com. Donald Trump had a very serious episode yesterday in Duluth, Georgia, at a Turning Point USA event. Tulsi was there, who now is a Republican. I'm so shocked. I'm stunned that Tulsi is now a Republican. Tucker was at the Turning Point USA rally. Trump receiving a WrestleMania-style entrance with pyrotechnics. This is, listen, you got to hand it to them. This is something they know how to do.
45th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump!
Dear God.
And I won't forget the man who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend.
So anyway, as usual, the fact that this guy has been able to bamboozle so many people into thinking that this ultra rich guy born with a silver spoon in his mouth, who spent his entire life trying to be kept isolated from the very people he now courts as voters, that he is the one with their best interests in mind. It is a coup of ideology that Trump has even been able to convince them of that. Now, of course, Trump, throughout this speech, notably disoriented and confused. And Trump's sensitivity to this, Trump knowing, hey, they've figured out something's wrong cognitively, now leads to Trump defending his cognitive state at every single one of these events. As you know, what Trump talks about reflects his insecurity. What Trump talks about reflects his vulnerability. And every single speech now, he talks about how he's fine cognitively. They're wrong to say it about me.
So I take the phone and put it down. The sad part is I never picked it up. I forgot. They'll say, he's cognitively imbalanced. He didn't pick up. These people, are they the worst?
But of course, Trump's completely fine, and he knows it, and that's why he says at every single damn speech now, my brain is fine, no problem there whatsoever. As many of you know, we have seen stock market high after high after high. The stock market has never been as high as it has been under President Joe Biden. And Donald Trump is again predicting that if Kamala Harris becomes president, 1929 style depression. Now, of course, he predicted this in 2020, didn't come true. Something to think about.
Your property, it will crash the stock market and decimate your 401ks, but we'll have a 1929 type depression. This woman is crazy.
Now, of course, it would be great to see serious journalists say to Trump, sir, you predicted a 1929 style depression in 2020, and yet we got 50 or 60 new all-time highs. You're now predicting it again. Why was your prediction failed in 2020? And we know what his answer would be. His answer would be, well, once it became clear that I was running, the markets optimistic about my future presidency did well. It has nothing to do with Joe. It's because of the expectation that I would become president. And of course, only deluded people would ever believe that. Now, in general, Donald Trump sounded sleepy and tired. Reports from the campaign are that he's absolutely exhausted, and this is why he's canceling so many interviews.
Oh, by the way, should we drop my favorite chart in the entire world? I love it. Drop that chart, please. Drop it.
Yeah.
Let's see, we're going to... Oh.
So Trump, very low energy at this one, but that didn't stop him from hurling baseless accusations at everybody, including taking an audience voice poll of whether he should sue CBS and 60 Minutes. Why? It's never clear. He doesn't like them, I guess. And of course, this is part of that dangerous authoritarian tendency that Trump has to threaten anybody who hasn't pledged undying loyalty to him. And this includes any media outlet that has the audacity to question the things Trump says.
But the best is 60 Minutes. They changed her answer. Should I sue them? Should I sue? Should we sue 60 Minutes and CBS? No, think of it. They asked her a question on 60 Minutes, which is news. You know, these companies have to get licensed. And in the licensing, it says they have to be honest. They gave her a question. She gave an answer that was from a loony bin. They said, we can't have that. They took the answer out in its entirety, threw it away, and they put another answer in. And I think it's the biggest scandal in broadcasting history. That's what I think. It's election interference fraud.
So listen, Trump wants to pull CBS off the air because of what he says was unfair editing of Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview. He wants to pull ABC off the air because they fact-checked him twice during a debate. He wants to pull MSNBC off of the air because I guess they don't support him. All things that in Trump world mean you lose your broadcast license. This is very, very dangerous, but it's nothing compared to what Donald Trump said about 1798.
We had to go back to 1798. That's when we had laws that were effective. 1798 we had to go back to. And if they come back into our country, it's an automatic 10 years in jail with no possibility of parole. Automatic if they come back into our country. And I'm hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer.
So there's a reason Trump is talking about 1798. In 1798, he's referring to a variety of laws that violated civil liberties. He's talking about the Alien Friends Act, the Alien Enemies Act, the Sedition Acts. But it's not just that. Slavery was legal in 1798. Women were not allowed to vote. In fact, there weren't even protections for women if their husbands decided to beat the hell out of them. Many states in 1798 would only let white men vote if they owned land. 1798. What a time to be in the United States, right? That's what Trump is talking about. Now, Trump also sprinkling in with the authoritarian nonsense, really just stupid comments, including his continued obsession about Kamala Harris working at McDonald's.
Expense. And very importantly, and you saw that the other day, she lied about working at McDonald's. She'd never worked there.
Of course, there's no evidence she lied.
She's a liar. And she wants to turn our country woke. Take her expense.
So Trump continually obsessed about the McDonald's thing, and also now, because he is under pressure because of his very obvious cognitive decline, continuing to say that Kamala Harris's IQ is just very low.
Under Kamala and her economy, millions of Americans, she has no idea about an economy. She's not a smart person. She's a low IQ individual. She is.
It's actually incredible that a low IQ individual was able to be San Francisco's district attorney, attorney general of a state, California, which has a population larger than most countries, a U.S. senator, and vice president. And what it might be is that low IQ is code for she's not white and she's not a man. That's what I'm starting to think Trump really means by that. And then Trump, the meteorologist, reminding us that Hurricane Helene was a water hurricane. Some of you may not have known this, but Trump says it was a water hurricane.
It was a water hurricane, more water than we've ever experienced from one storm. And it created rivers out of valleys.
It was extremely wet from the standpoint of water. Now, Trump's performance at this rally was bad enough, but there was a lot of bad to go around, and I want to talk about that a little bit next. Tucker Carlson spoke at this Turning Point USA event in Duluth, Georgia, and is now referring to Trump as daddy and inciting election violence. This is a very dangerous man. We've talked before about Tucker Carlson's penchant for stochastic terrorism. Here is Tucker Carlson essentially endorsing an attempt to steal the election if Kamala Harris wins, and alluding to Trump as daddy, and daddy's upset.
That's the point at which you say, no, I'm sorry. I put up with this crap for a long time. I indulge your little fantasy. It's like when your teenage girl becomes a vegetarian, and you're like, okay, that's, okay, that's fine. No, I totally understand. You're like, it's a phase. But if that phase goes on for 9 years and includes destroying your major cities and allowing your country to be invaded by millions of foreigners whose identities you don't know and whose purpose in this country is unclear, by the way, why shouldn't we feel threatened by that? If they go out of their way to crush families, to make it impossible for your kids to buy a house, and getting involved in the sex lives of your children, which they are, if they do all of that, they need to lose. And at the end of all of it, when they tell you they've won, no. You can look them straight in the face and say, I'm sorry, Dad's home, and he's pissed. Thank you.
When they tell you they've won, no, you look them straight in the face and say, I'm sorry, Dad's home, meaning Trump, and he's pissed. This is an endorsement of, by any means necessary, if we are told Kamala Harris won, you do what you need to do to put Trump in the White House. Tucker Carlson also, by the way, fully on board now. I didn't remember that Tucker fully bought the Trump really won it in 2020 stuff. But based on what he said yesterday to the Turning Point USA crowd, it sounds like he is now fully buying into that.
The vibe is so strong right now, I don't think we can get away with pretending something else happened. I don't think we can have another 2020 at this point. I just don't. I don't. Where they hid relevant facts from you, they prevented you from knowing about their candidate, and then claim victory, or 37 billion votes or whatever they claim he got. That's rigging the election, period. If the government prevents people from knowing critical information about a candidate, they have rigged the election. And they did that, period. Oh, you're not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to say it because it's 100% true. And every person who hears it knows it's true, including the people who did it.
All right. So Tucker now saying it was rigged, straight up, it was rigged. And then finally, also to the Turning Point USA crowd, Tucker Carlson continuing to weaponize this very failed notion of what it means to be a man and what it means to be weak or a strong man, and explaining that the weak men being put forth by the left are part of why there are so many problems, including problems for women.
The Democratic Party machine, and notice I'm not beating up on Kamala Harris, who's just a hapless victim who happened to be there in the right color, so they grabbed her. Tim Walz, they needed some, whatever Tim Walz is. They needed a weak man.
By the way, Tim Walz is everything they say makes you a real man. He's a Midwest guy. He's a hunter, football coach, fixes his own car, likes fast food, I guess. I don't know. He seems very knowledgeable when they go into these various fast food places. Tim Walz actually is everything they say the alpha male is supposed to be. He doesn't wear makeup. And Trump is the opposite. And yet they have no choice but to say Tim Walz is really the weak man. But he embodies the strong man you claimed to love until you pledged loyalty to Trump.
Because it is the party of weak men and unhappy women. One of which leads to the other, by the way. Where you find weak men, you will inevitably find unhappy women. Sorry. And they make them on purpose. They weaken the men to drive the women insane to have the most consistent voting bloc ever in the history of politics.
That doesn't even sound like it would plausibly work. And that's how you know these ideas have gotten really dumb. It's even if what Tucker were saying were true, it sounds like it wouldn't really work. Deliberately creating weak men so that you upset the women into reflexively voting for Democrats. How is that even, how does that even logically follow? And of course, it's just diarrhea of the mouth. It's say whatever comes to mind and the crowd cheers. Jim Brewer has this very unfunny skit where he acts as though the Democratic audiences are just, he does something, I don't remember if it's a cockatoo or what was, they just clap and go with whatever. This Turning Point USA audience is an empty vessel. It's just a void where Tucker says anything. The Democrats create weak men to upset the women so that they just vote Democrat unquestioningly. That doesn't even follow. But I'll clap. Sounds pretty good. So the problem, of course, is not that we are unable to see through it. We see through it. The problem is that tens of millions of Americans seem unable to. And that's what the election, unfortunately, hinges on. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com, joinpakman.com. It is great to welcome back to the program for the final time before the November 5th election, Rachel Bitecofer, political strategist, author of the book Hit 'em Where It Hurts, How to Save Democracy by Beating Republicans at Their Own Game. You know, Rachel, this is a much anticipated appearance by many in my audience. I will tell you, there are some in my audience who are upset when I say, guys, I'm not a professional poll reader, but from what I'm seeing, this is really a coin flip. Georgia polling is looking better for Trump than it was some months ago, et cetera. And some people say, David, that's negativity. We need positivity, et cetera. My view is I want realistic. And I see no evidence that this is obviously going to be an election won by Kamala Harris. And in fact, if I look at the last 2 months, I see Trump momentum. The counter to Trump momentum is they're creating fake polls, et cetera, et cetera. I see Trafalgar Group there, but even if I ignore it, Quinnipiac, right, the other polls seem to show some swing to Trump. So tell me, who's right, who's wrong, what's in the data, what's not here?
I mean, you're partially right? I mean, you're partially right in that I deal in data too. I deal in lead, man. My job is to tell you what's going to happen, not what you want to happen.
Yes.
But here's where you are a little off, I would say, is this idea that Trump has gained momentum, okay? And, you know, when you say, well, I look and there's Trafalgar, let me tell you, Tom Bonnier, Simon Rosenberg, and I were like, hey, maybe we should build an outside aggregator that uses only high quality public polling with likely voter samples, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, I'll go collect the data. So I went to go collect the data. This is like 3 or 4 days ago. And, you know, I pull it up and I start really, it's because I have not been looking at any of the polling data. As I've told you guys, it's all, you know, all I can tell you is it's a toss up. Okay. That's it. Right. And day to day, what you guys and your audience are seeing as changes in the race, right, are actually just changes in the polls. The race has stayed completely the same since the switch. It's an advantage 3 points nationally for Harris, which means that it is a toss up for sure at the swing state level. And I mean 50-50 toss up, right? So, you know, when I went to go build the aggregator, I had to write them back and say, actually, we can't do it because there's not enough standalone data to build it. And what that's saying is we're not talking about one survey that's like the flood the zone narrative setter from the GOP. We're talking about 15 of them. And there's very, very small subset of public polling. Most of it is coming from the 3 trackers, the ICE Post, Reuters poll, the YouGov Economist poll, and the Morning Consult tracking poll. Now, all 3 of those are large sample internet surveys, so they have much bigger, more robust N sizes to look down at cross-tabular data, but they are sampled from internet samples. At least they're offering a likely voter sample and not adult or registered voter samples, which are also more noisy. And what do they show, David? Well, they show no difference. I mean, in fact, I think we just got an update from YouGov or Morning Consult or one of them a couple of days ago, and it was still +4 Harris. Okay.
So that's interesting. So let's probe that a little bit and dig in a little deeper. Likely voter models. Another claim that's made, and this is why we go to you, so you tell me whether this is a worthwhile claim. Another claim that is made is that the dynamics of this race are so wacky that determining who is really validly considered a likely voter is more difficult than ever. And so likely voter doesn't tell us something we need to know because we don't really have a good sense of who's likely to vote.
Wrong, I would say. I mean, we have like this idea that the electorate is changing and Trump brought in all these new people in 2016 and maybe he's doing it now, right? Those things are really overstated, as are these day-to-day changes in the polls, which, you know, of course, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, New York Times, all of them treat them as changes in the race, not changes in a survey moving from one to the other, right? And so this is another area that is really misreported and mishandled by media. So, you know,
so you have no concern that the issue with the polls is they're not really figuring out who's likely to vote. You're comfortable with that aspect of the methodology.
I am, but here's here's where the uncertainty is going to enter. And like I put out a tweet about this. Now I've been doing weekly election analysis. So if you haven't subscribed to my Substack, you need to go and do that so that
Yes.
you're not following these polls every day and having freakouts. Okay. So you understand how to look at the rest of the data, because there's a lot of hard data that we can look at and other things that are not head-to-head horse race within the margin of error surveys. So you should go and do that. But where the uncertainty is, and I said why I'm not predicting something more specific than toss-up advantage Harris, and this is 3 or 4 days ago on Twitter, is because there are so many completely unprecedented elements happening this cycle. We've never had an incumbent president who lost and then staged an insurrection, but lost, come back and try to run again the next cycle, right? We've never had the nominee switch in July like that, especially not in the modern era, maybe
Right.
historically when it was a different system, right? We've never had a female Black nominee. And I'm here to tell you guys, America's racist as fuck, okay? It is a racist country. This election, if it goes against us, it will be because of migrants, okay? Like 63% of people want to do mass deportations.
You're not saying you would blame the migrants, just to be clear. You're saying it would be because of antipathy towards migrants.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. It's the antithesis. Well, I mean, I'm also blaming the idea of letting 6 million migrants in for a year, guys, okay? Because like in our little liberal fantasy bubbles in LA and San Fran and DC, there's no such thing as an illegal and everyone's a human, okay? In the rest of America, we're about to see small L liberal democracy collapse because you can't have 6 million people cross a border in a year, guys.
So you agree that's a real issue, the way Republicans say it is?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And unlike us, it's their number one issue. So like if I was giving speeches to Republicans, I would say to them, what's the one issue Democrats don't want to talk about? Now, I do a version of this for my speeches, which are, of course, to Democrats. And I say to that audience, because I can't get people to understand this, no matter how many times I try to push it, what is the one thing Republicans don't want to talk about this cycle? And they know it's abortion, right? And I'm like, why aren't we talking about it incessantly then, right? And so on their side, if I was doing that speech to the audience, I'd say, what's the one thing Democrats don't want to talk about? The room would yell back, immigration, right? And so they have centered their campaign strategy around that, which has a true salience. And I'm going to tell you, in that 63% of people who wanted mass deportations of the migrants, it was like 40% of Democrats, okay? You don't get to 63 without some Democrats, okay? And then the other issue is trans. So like if you have been following their advertising strategy, which of course I have been, and has predominantly focused on men, okay? And we can talk about that as an unknown in a second, right? But it's predominantly focused on men. And what's the argument? They're all about how Kamala got sex offender in prison, a gender transition surgery, okay? And the closed line is, she's with they, them, and it shows scary trans people, and he's with you, okay? And I'm going to tell you, in our world, they'd be like, well, what's the most important issue? Well, abortion's not the most important issue. We shouldn't talk about it. Okay, well, trans rights, I'm here to tell you now, on no surveys is the number one issue to people.
Right.
Okay? But they made it the number one issue, and it's a very effective wedge. So, what people want is a certainty that we cannot provide, because when we're talking about presidential elections, we're talking about an N size of like 38 total cases. There's like been 38 elections, right? There's only one every 4 years in the modern era, right? You don't have this big data set. And to have so many known unknowns going on, it makes it very difficult to predict. But the other thing is not so much trying to figure out who the likely voter is going to look like. Now we can anticipate that. So like Trump's strategy is has really gone all in on writing off women, basically, JD Vance, right? And focusing on men. And their theory of the case is, we're going to radicalize men on trans and immigration issues, and we'll get low propensity voters to show up and vote, right? They're going to come out and vote. Well, the problem is to see that happen first, you have to see a registration boom in the data, because most of our states, you have to register in advance to vote later.
Let me ask you a question about that specifically to Pennsylvania. There are Republicans gleefully claiming that they have an advantage in new registrations in Pennsylvania, and that given how close it was in 2020, that's it. On the other hand, you have some Democrats saying early ballot submissions favor Democrats. That's it. And it's obvious that it's Kamala Harris who's going to win Pennsylvania. Is either of these tea leaf readings valuable?
No, I mean, early vote and vote by mail used to be valuable until Donald Trump went and told his side of the electorate that early voting and vote by mail was fraud. I mean, he
Yes.
did that all through 2020, and it changed mass voter behavior, not just a little bit, but significantly. We saw huge drop-offs of Republicans doing that, and it was pervasive. It lasted, through 22, we saw that still, right? So now it's noisy data, right? And it's a shame because it was a nice hard data point. Now, in terms of their claims about registration, the registration deadline just passed, and I'm waiting with data. It takes time for all that to be processed, but we'll be looking again. I had Tom Bonnier from Target Smart, which your audience probably is familiar with, Tom and Simon Rosenberg, pulled the registration data a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, just tell me this one answer. I just want to know this. If their theory of the case is that they're going to motivate more men than ever to come and vote Trump, then they have to have there should be a boom in registrations for men. Okay. And it's not there. It wasn't there in the initial run of data. And I can't say for sure it's not going to be there until I get this second, run of the analysis after registration is closed, right? It's closed now. But my guess is it's not going to be there, guys. And the reason is when Steve Bannon told Donald Trump, don't worry about suburban women, we can win this election without them. I was like, oh, as a trained political scientist, I'm like, oh, so your theory is you're going to get people who don't vote to show up and vote. Well, you have fun with that, because that is the hardest thing in electoral politics to do. Half of the country, again, half of our fellow citizens, when you're in the mall, maybe not if you live in LA or San Fran or some major city, okay? But if you live anywhere else, you go into a mall, half the people you walk by do not vote. They don't vote and they don't care. And they're proud of not voting. Okay?
Yes.
And then when you get to the 50% that do vote, most of them have no idea that John Kelly called Trump a fascist, and they'll never hear it unless we get saturation news coverage and everyone pounds on it for 2 weeks, okay?
Right.
They're never going to hear it. So that's the reality of the electorate. It is perfectly capable in this moment with that propaganda machine. And, we only got modest change. The Harris campaign is running good strategy. They've been running, picked it up from Joe Biden. They've kept it going. And, they're making sure to bring voters up to speed on the crazy and try to build this big tent, because we're trying to get Republicans to vote against brand loyalty. It's very hard to do, right? But down ballot, a lot of the races have run old strategy. And here's the thing, it's like, okay, we're on the cusp of collapsing into fascism. Most of the country, that pit in the stomach that you have, I have, your audience has, that's gotten worse every day and will be almost like, undealable next week, right? That is not something that your average American at your kid's soccer practice has, dude. They don't even know that. They won't know until it's all happening. And then they're going to be like, oh, holy shit, what happened? Like, what do you mean that, the newspapers all have to sign up with a ministry of truth?
So on that note, Rachel, I mean, I agree with you that the John Kelly stuff, it's just not going to move the needle. I want to talk a little bit about, is there anything that could move the needle at this point other than a candidate dying? And I'll give you a couple of things that are just on my mind. There's this breaking story from yesterday. A woman says in '93, Trump groped her in a game with Jeffrey Epstein. Not everyone's even covering it. It's sort of like, okay, now there's 48 instead of 47 women who say that Trump did something. The other one I want to mention is there have started to be rumblings about, hey, there's going to be manipulated images coming out of Trump, sort of like as if Republicans are preparing for some really damaging video to come out, which they're going to say it's been doctored, it's not real. What could even hypothetically really change the race right now?
It's hard for me to say. I saw those rumors pop up yesterday. Something's going to come out. Oh, and I saw, the right talk about AI. But then this thing comes out and it's like, it's a nothing burger, because we live in a society that's accepted 48 sexual assaults. Why are they going to give a fuck about the 49th, folks? Okay?
Exactly.
So I'm not sure if that's the thing that they were talking about and teasing all day, because if it is, it's completely useless, right? Yeah. But maybe it is something else because they did allude to this AI thing. Maybe there'll be something else. But no one gives a shit about Trump being a sexual assault. They don't care about his character. They don't give a shit about any of that. But I will tell you this, like you just said something about John Kelly and fascism won't move the needle. Okay. And I'm going to push back very hard at that because what I just told you is, you know, he said that, and you've known he's said that for a long time.
Let me clarify, Rachel.
But
Let me
average
clarify.
Americans have no idea. Okay?
If every American heard about it, it would move the needle. But I'm assuming, like you are saying, it's just not going to break through to people who don't even pay attention necessarily.
Well, we could if we were all focused, centralized messaging.
Yes.
Okay, that's that's my point.
So, is there anything at this point that could really change the race?
Yes, I mean, we're counting on. You guys, it's hard for people to us. I mean, I've been doing this shit for a year now with progressives and Democrats, man. I'm gonna hear it's frustrating because I keep telling you, no one gives a fuck. No one reads the news. No one knows who Mike Johnson is. Okay. No one has gender pronouns in their profile. Okay. You guys are so out of, like the in your world, politics is important. You know all about it. But in other people's world, it's not. So like it's something like NASCAR. I can't name a contemporaneous NASCAR driver. Okay, I think there's some guy named Jimmy Johnson that used to drive a NASCAR, but I'm not even sure about that. Okay? That's how most of America is about politics, guys. That if you ask them to go more than an inch deep, which is Joe Biden is the president, okay, they don't know anything else. That's literally it, right? Yep. And so, when you think like, okay, well, everything's set in stone, I'm here to tell you that many of these pure independents, because remember, we got to get the leaners out and we got to look at only pure independents. Many of them have never once thought about this election up till today. Okay. Up till today.
And so what does that mean?
I mean, it means that they've never read anything about it. They haven't thought about it. It isn't on their radar, and now it will be because they're socialized or habituated into voting.
So is the point that the stories between now and November 5th are what will make a difference to those independents?
Yes, could make a big difference. Yes, it's the narrative. It's the top level narrative.
So it's less
that's
about
either going to be Comrade Camp Kamala,
right?
Raised your prices and let in a bunch of migrants, right? Or it's going to be Dictator Trump is going to make a national abortion ban and steal your freedom, right? And we better win that narrative because they have a whole sound machine to do it with, right? We don't. We have to rely on mainstream media, and we have made Project 2025 a household name from nothing within a year. So we know we can do it, right? We know we can do it, but it causes this idea that we should be focusing on joy to close or, big progressive policies. Like, no, guys, like we're trying to get democracy's about to collapse. If it collapses, the first people they're coming for the Gaza movement. Okay. The whole Gaza movement, white, black, Muslim, otherwise, if you're in that movement, you are target number one. It's right on Trump's website. They're coming for you, right? So we're talking about an election that's going to have catastrophic effects. And our argument is everyone already knows that, so let's not bother to tell the electorate. No!
That's the wrong instinct. Yeah. Rachel, a couple of quick ones before we wrap. And if you just don't have a sense of these, that's totally fine. Do you have a prediction on who wins the Senate and who wins the House?
I mean, it's going to all go together, right? I mean, the Senate is feasibly the one that won't go. Like, we could win the presidency and the House. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where she wins and we don't carry the House. It's a very slim GOP majority in the House. In terms of strategy, though, like there's only a few House campaigns running good strategy, branding their opponent as an extremist and bringing the electorate up to speed on how crazy, and what those crazy policies will do to them personally. So it's hard for me to get a sense, but in 22, there was a real bifurcation. Races that ran new strategy won, the ones that didn't lost. Most of them are not running it. So in the Senate, I'm very bearish. I feel like we're not going to make it because we chose to run old strategies. And they're telling the same swing voter that we think we can't do this to. They're telling that same swing voter, don't vote for Colin Allred because he's going to turn your boy into a girl.
That was going to be my question. Is there a shot that Ted Cruz loses?
I mean, it could happen, but here's where things go haywire, folks. I mean, as a political behaviorist, I'm here to tell you, institutional structure is going to be the most important determinant to voter participation. What I mean by that is, how hard is it in a state to vote? The Constitution gave the states the ability to run their own electoral system. So we have this huge variety of systems. In Oregon, they send me my ballots in the mail. I have 2 weeks. I have a book I can read while I'm voting. And so lots of people vote because it's super convenient. In Texas, they have made it as hard. I mean, it's always been harder to vote in Texas. And that's why you saw 60% turnout rates in Oregon. In the same cycle, it'd be 37% in Texas. Okay. And so, the infrastructure to get these races over the line in Texas and Florida are very, very tough. Okay. Because it's Republican infrastructure. But we have to make an effort down there, and those long shot races are more apt to adapt strategically. So they are pounding, obviously not running the way I would run them, but they're at least dappling in the right approach, right? But those are long shot races. So, but we do look very rough in Montana, and so it's very possible that we could lose the Senate, even winning everything else.
Rachel Bidikofer, political strategist. Check out her book, Hit 'em Where It Hurts, How to Save Democracy by Beating Republicans at Their Own Game. Rachel, we'll be watching, and we'll talk to you after the election.
Yeah, and good luck and good night and good luck, as what's his name used to say.
Thank you. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. We've been following the aftermath of this story in which it was leaked that Donald Trump reportedly said, in the presence of his former chief of staff, John Kelly, that Hitler did some good things and he would like generals loyal like Hitler had generals loyal to him. We're going to hear from New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, and then we'll hear from Senator Haggerty as well. And these are two very different responses, both interesting. We first have an example. Here is Kate Baldwin on CNN yesterday interviewing the governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu. And Chris Sununu essentially says, nobody who's planning to vote Trump is bothered by Trump praising Hitler because we're used to him saying these sorts of things and it's already baked into the cake. Not exactly an inspiring response, but you've got to hand it to him. Maybe an accurate response. Listen to this.
Chris Sununu. It's good to see you, Governor. Thanks for being here. Hearing that,
you bet.
Does that change how you feel about Donald Trump and your plans to vote for him?
No, look, I respect General Kelly. I think he's great. He's got a long-term relationship with the president. When you get into these final weeks, it's all about results. So, of course, you're going to get salacious things said and all that. And I'm not taking away the general's conversation with the former president. But at the end of the day, what that poll that your team was just looking at, independents want results. They don't want that kind of ultra-liberal extremism. They want to be told the truth. They want to get their cost of living down.
Of course, there is no ultra-liberal extremism on the ballot. That's a complete red herring.
That's where voters are going to go. So it's not just a Chris Sununu thing or a General Kelly thing. If you're talking to the American voters out there, they just need a cultural change coming out of Washington. So, look, we've heard a lot of extreme things about Donald Trump from Donald Trump. It's kind of par for the course. It's really, unfortunately, with a guy like that, it's kind of baked into the vote at this point. So those last swing voters are just going to kind of push towards what's going to get.
It's baked in. When a Democratic candidate says, I'm worried about the state of democracy if Donald Trump wins, we're supposed to believe that that's a problem and it's an incitement to violence and that should never be said. But then Trump praising Hitler, it's part of the cake that's been baked. It's all in there. That's it. And I wish that it was more politically acceptable to say, this is new information that changes my opinion. That's a reasonable thing. Kamala Harris, for example, has a different view today on cannabis legalization than she did 10 years ago. She has new information. Barack Obama at one point opposed same-sex marriage. He got new information. It's a shame that he needed new information, but apparently he did. he changed his view and he came around to the right opinion. It would be great for Chris Sununu to say, the praising Hitler, that's new information. That does change my view. And I would understand if it changes the views of others. But of course, you never do that when it comes to Trump. That is considered being disloyal. And Chris Sununu also knows that if he wants to stay in Trump's good graces, especially if Trump wins and he wants access to power, meaning access to Trump, you don't say anything like that. That's not okay. And think about where we've landed in American politics, where Hitler admiration is, extreme things are said about Trump and extreme things are said by Trump. It's baked in. It's what we assume. It's what we know. It doesn't really make a difference. Now, Kate Baldwin did follow up during this interview and said, are you okay supporting someone that John Kelly says is a fascist? And Chris Sununu essentially says, everybody's kind of comfortable with it, Kate.
Supporting the ticket and saying that is saying that you're going to support someone who Marine General John Kelly says fits the definition of fascist.
Right.
For sure, he says. John Kelly says that Trump, quote, certainly prefers the dictator approach to government. In supporting the ticket, that is something that you're supporting. Yeah. Is that something you are okay with?
No, look, I don't think anybody should be okay with statements like that, of course. And if there's ever anyone you don't want any sort of comparison to, it's Hitler and all of that sort of thing. As we've discussed before, I think it's not just what Chris Sununu is going to be voting for. I think most of America is going to go this way. I do think Trump wins this thing in the end, and it's about that change. People are willing to say, look, I don't like his style. I don't like his approach. I don't like the things he says. But if we can get a Republican mindset out of Washington that says you come first as an individual, not big governments, states' rights matter, regulatory reforms, we're going to cut regulation out, we're going to make things a little easier in terms of costs, we're going to handle the inflation. I know the media likes to talk about the salacious stuff, but I'm just trying to say, whether it's Chris Sununu or 50% plus one voter that are likely going to win this thing for Trump, that's what America cares. I don't know any.
So first of all, if Trump wins, he's not going to win with 50% plus one vote. Trump's going to lose the popular vote almost certainly, but he might win electorally. That's number one. But Chris Sununu seems to be kind of acknowledging, listen, praising Hitler, it's not good. Being called a fascist by people I respect like John Kelly, it's not good. None of it's good. But, the country's going this way. We want to put a Republican in there at whatever cost, at any cost. It doesn't matter what the cost is. Hitler, Mussolini, whoever he loves. We're just all really going to do this. And Chris Sununu phrasing it as, it's not just me who's okay with this and still going to vote for Trump. It's, he claims, half of the country plus one. Absolutely horrifying. Now, this was Chris Sununu's approach. What about Bill Hagerty's? Let's talk about that. Continued interviews asking Republican elected officials, what about this whole praising Hitler thing that Donald Trump did? And our next example is John Berman on CNN interviewing Senator Bill Hagerty and saying, are there any things you believe Hitler did that are good?
What good things would you say Hitler did?
Well, I wouldn't say Hitler did any good things. And I would also say this. I worked both with General Kelly and President Trump in the last administration, and it was not a good fit. General Kelly's been on record many times criticizing President Trump. Obviously, he doesn't like President Trump. I would take that with a grain of salt, just as I would some of the other things that have been reported.
Okay, so Hagerty says, I would take what Kelly says with a grain of salt, which suggests maybe it was a lie. Except then Berman says, do you have awareness of John Kelly ever lying about anything? And Hagerty has to admit, no, I actually don't.
Do you have any idea what Trump could be praising about Adolf Hitler?
Well, I'm not agreeing that Trump is praising Adolf Hitler, because all you have are the comments from General Kelly, again, who did not mix with President Trump, who did not get along with President Trump, and who's been consistently on the record against President Trump. I'll say this. I did serve with President Trump as U.S. Ambassador to Japan. We have more U.S. military stationed there in Japan than any place else in the world overseas. President Trump came to visit me 3 times. We always met with our military there, and I never saw anything but the utmost respect. Both President Trump's respect for our military and their love and respect for him. That's what I know.
John Kelly, retired 4-star Marine general. He was chief of staff and Secretary of Homeland Security while you were ambassador to Japan. Did he ever lie to you about anything?
I never am aware of John Kelly lying to me about anything, no.
All right, so why doubt what he is now saying on the record out loud about these conversations?
Because it's wholly inconsistent with my experience with President.
So listen, we did the consistency routine yesterday. We talked about how actually this is completely consistent with everything we know about Trump in every way. Every single one of these new statements is completely consistent with what we know about Trump. The funny thing there is it's Haggerty who goes, I would take it with a grain of salt. I don't know. Well, you know John Kelly. Has he ever lied about anything to your knowledge? No. So why would you suspect that this is a lie? It just doesn't sound like Trump, except of course it absolutely does. Is this going to be a deciding factor ultimately in this election? No, I don't believe that it's going to be. Is it exposing these Republicans for the naked political actors that they are, who put party above country no matter what, above all else every single time? Yes, it is. And on the bonus show today, we are actually going to be exploring some other naked politics, including that Eileen Cannon, the judge in one of Trump's criminal trials, who has been very friendly, very useful to Trump. She's reportedly being considered for attorney general. Think about that. A whole bunch of other great stories on the bonus show when I am joined by producer Pat. We do have a new show tomorrow, but there's no reason to wait for that because you can get the bonus show today by signing up at joinpacman.com. I hope you will do it. I hope to see you on the bonus show, and otherwise we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. Introducing the award-winning Pod 4 Ultra from 8 Sleep, a high-tech mattress cover you can easily add to your existing mattress. The Pod changes the temperature of your mattress. You can set it anywhere from 55 to 110 degrees, letting you and your partner set different temperatures on each side. I keep mine at 60 so that I don't get hot. It can also adjust the position of your mattress to reduce snoring, and you get 30 days to try and decide if you love it. Go to 8sleep.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman to get $350 off your Pod 4 Ultra. The link is in the description.